Alright, this video tutorial is going to cover the basics of the development of a technical resume. So what you'll see on the screen in front of you is a mock IT resume for an individual that could be enrolled, for instance, in the MSIT program. I'll do an overview of the resume development process and some of the mandatory categories of inclusion, as well as perhaps some optional categories as well that you can think about when you're developing your first iteration of your technical resume. So first, you'll notice just at the very top of our screen we have the student's name listed, as well as the student's contact information, as well as their general location. At this point in time, it isn't entirely necessary to have your physical home or campus address. If you don't feel comfortable giving that out, that's perfectly okay. But I do recommend having some city locator associated with you so that our employer partners will be able to recognize that you perhaps live in Cincinnati or Mason or Northern Kentucky, for instance, because that can sometimes play into their hiring decisions. Additionally, I recommend associating your contact information with your University of Cincinnati email. Because you are a UC student, I think it's important to ensure that you are showing our employer partners that you are officially connected with our program and with our institution. So I would recommend that. So that is just kind of a basic student header. You'll see that in terms of the layout of this one is centered and it is inserted in the header of the document. You have the freedom to shift this to the left-hand side if you want to left align it or even right align it. That's entirely up to you. In terms of overall font usage for the header as well as the body of the document, I recommend utilizing one of the standard fonts that you can find in any Microsoft Word application, such as a Cambria, a Times New Roman, or an Arial, for instance. I recommend staying away from using, I believe it's the default currently, in 2017 now, the Calibri font. I recommend avoiding that just because it's considered more of an informal font for viewing purposes, and on a resume, which is a highly professional document, you want to ensure that your font looks as professional as possible. So again, my recommendations would be Cambria, Times New Roman, or Arial font, or something similar to those to look as formal as possible. Then as we move down the document past the header, the second major component is this piece of computer and technical skills. This is one of the mandatory components of technical resume creation. So you will, as an IT student, as an MSIT student, you will have to include a section that really highlights all of the computer and technical skills that you possess. Now, my strategy for articulating these to our employer partners tends to be creating a subcategorization of the various technical skills that you have. So for instance, you'll notice here some of the subcategories that you could include would be things like operating systems, languages, software, system security, so on and so forth. Now this portion of a resume should be customized to highlight your skill set specifically. So if you do not have any experience with Java or web development in HTML or CSS, clearly you would not include those. But if you do have some type of language development with it's C or Objective-C or C# or something like that, you can obviously include those as an alternative. So again, this is highly customized to meet your needs and to really extract those computer and technical skills that showcase you in the best possible way. A next category for inclusion that I highly recommend is either direct IT work experience, or in many cases you maybe have not worked in an IT discipline or had an IT professional experience yet, and and you may have IT project experience. That is okay. So in this second category that I'm highlighting, I want you to create either an IT project experience section or an IT professional work experience section, depending on what that is. For instance, the student here in our mock resume was a part of the General Electric, the GE Ghost Red hackathon, and served as a developer in a voluntary hackathon event that took place at GE headquarters in Cincinnati. And the individual went about describing their experience and used action verbs, you'll see here, which are very important in terms of describing your experience. So developed, implemented, debugged, assisted, for instance, are just some of the examples this individual used. So this would be my recommendation. Again, we want to draw the eyes of our employer partners to you because of not only your IT skill set, but some type of experience that you have, whether it's direct professional experience or even project experience is completely okay. So moving on, the third mandatory category for me is education, and education should be in reverse chronological order. So that means starting with the education that you're currently involved in, and that would be a part of the School of IT's MSIT program. So here is one way that you could format your education for our employer partners if you would like. So for instance, we have University of Cincinnati, and we indicate that you're in the Master's of Science in Information Technology program. So although this degree has not yet been conferred upon you, you should still indicate that you are part of this program for purposes of employment consideration. And the way you do that is you indicate your degree, but you just indicate your anticipated graduation. So for instance, May of 2022. Bachelor's degree should definitely be included, whether that was at the University of Cincinnati or a different school and different program is perfectly okay. And I do recommend highlighting your graduation date as well as the GPA that you had while in undergrad. And although you may hear that GPA isn't entirely important for all IT employers, to some extent this is true, but I will say that for our major company partners, for individuals that receive a lot of applicants, they will use GPA as screening criteria. So even if you don't have a formal GPA in place yet in your master's level program, if you have a GPA that is above a 3.0, especially from your undergrad, I would definitely ensure that that is on your resume and highlighted. And then finally, I would say this is an optional piece. It is something that I do not have on my personal resume, but I know some people are very opinionated about wanting to include their high school information and maintaining that connection. So if you want, you can include your high school information on your resume in your education section. However, it is not a mandatory component. All right. Once we have moved past education, now we've covered the header of the document, the computer and technical skills, IT project or IT professional experience, education. Now we kind of move to the part of the resume that I feel is very optional for you. So if you still have room on your document, this is the part where some personal customization can come into play. There is no remaining mandatory component that I want you to put on your technical resume, but you can adapt this, I would say, this piece of your resume to best fit and best highlight the experiences you've had. So for instance, it could be a work experience that is unrelated to IT. So it could be some type of supplemental work experience. It could be a club or an organization that you're a part of, especially clubs or organizations that relate directly to your field of information technology. It could be a professional organization, a professional affiliation. It could be volunteer experience as another example. And it also could be relevant technical coursework. So if you have several years, both undergrad and perhaps even in graduate school so far, if you have several years worth of technical coursework where you can show classes where you've learned, for instance, networking protocols and object-oriented programming paradigms, and these sorts of things. And these can be conveyed on your resume in a clear and succinct way where an employer can understand the skill sets as well as the education that you possess. I highly recommend including that. So again, this would be the final portion of your technical resume, and it is comprised of just I would say optional components, and the components that best highlight your skills, your experiences, and your involvement. And then finally, in the footer of the document, I recommend indicating your employment availability. So with the MSIT program, the way this is framed, traditionally students are going to be participating in the actual practicum placement component of the program the summer following the completion of PD 7010, the professional development course for which you are currently enrolled. So I recommend indicating that term availability. So that could be employment availability summer 2018 term, for instance, and the dates of that would be approximately May through August. So again, this is an overview of the initial stages in developing a technical resume that will be used for job search purposes. So just to highlight one more time, mandatory categories of inclusion are computer and technical skills, IT project experience or professional IT work experience, your education in reverse chronological order, and then your optional categories, which could be supplemental work experience, organizations, volunteer work, or technical coursework. So thanks for watching, and we'll provide more information, more development insight into resumes as we progress throughout the course.